and you can't hardly know, 'cause times change, I know.
On some days he's more than humble. On some days he's cold and mad, mad as hell. Well, you saw him and you can't hardly know. It's so strange. Well, I know. Those lakes of golden water, those lakes of gold are all running out. Well, you saw him and you can't hardly know. It's so strange. Well, I know. Joy, joy, joy. Work, work, work harder, sure as the hours. Joy, joy, joy. Work, work, work harder, you say. On some days he's more than humble. On some days he's cold and mad, mad as hell. Well, you saw him and you can't hardly know. It's so strange. Well, I know. Those lakes of golden water, those lakes of gold are all running out. Well, you saw him and you can't hardly know. It's so strange. Well, I know. Joy, joy, joy. Work, work, work harder, sure as the hours. Joy, joy, joy. Work, work, work harder, you say. Joy, joy, joy. Work, work, work harder, sure as the hours. Joy, joy, joy. Work, work, work harder, you say.
Come along, join the fun, in a world where adventure is never done. Every corner we turn, a new friend in tow. It's time to start the magic on the Globus Show. It's time to learn and grow on the Globus Show. See the sights, so much to know. Across the land, together we go. Hand in hand we join the flow. Discover wonders in the Globus Show, where every day's a brand new episode. start the magic. On the Globus Show. It's time to learn and grow. On the Globus Show, see the sights, so much to know. Across the land, together we go. Hand in hand we join the flow. Discover wonders in the Globus Show. Where every day's a brand new episode. On the Globus Show. It's time to learn and grow. On the Globus Show.
Long time no see. What up, Twitch? What up, bots? What up, lurkers? What up, tiny people in my chatterino? It's your boy. It is your boy. Y'all. Hello. I guess we're gonna open up with Stampy Snacks. Are you ready? I can tell Ben's not here yet. Stampy Snacks. Who doesn't love Stampy? I found that if I put it right over the top of his head, if I put it on top of him. What up, Michael? AI skeptics, what up, Pharaoh? AI skeptics often say you shouldn't use AI because it hallucinates. Meanwhile, Gambit Security reports that a hacker used Anthropic's Claude to infiltrate Mexico's Federal Tax Authority, Electoral Institute, and several state governments. Yes, the enemy is both strong and weak. This is the key. This is the key. It is useless. It exists just to sell cloud compute. It is fraudulent. Something, other things that Ed Zitron says. But at the same time, people are using it to do incredible things, some good and some bad. Do not look directly into the light, Stampy. You gotta stay on camera. People
We are the board.
show up to
Lower
see
your shields
yourself.
and surrender your ships. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Resistance is futile.
What up, Raiders? What up, Raiders? I am being assaulted by lynx. What up, James? What up, Stellar Wingman? What up, Corrosive Owl? What up, Peevil? What up, Zippy? What up, Olo Bustios? What up, Crix? What up, Chef? What up, What's in a Name? What up, Iggy? What up, me? What up, Tristan? What up, Koi's TV? What up, Textilian? What up? You should blame Obama. What up, Admiral? What up, Chabs? What up, Beckley? How you doing? What up, Nero? What up, Straight Dope? What up, Allie? What up, Biggest of Benz? What up, Illmatic? What up, Koshka? Do. I did the violence. What up, Tony? Tony Ray?
My circuitry's 12 years out of date. I can't keep up with today's high-speed, top-of-the-line kids.
James, thank you for gifting one to Textilian Overlord. Much appreciated. Let's look at the shenanigans that you... Oh, this is the thing you were watching at the end of your stream. I mean, I can't really go ahead and watch it again because all of you just saw it. What up, Cicero? Thank you. Thank you. This is a more... It does need to be trimmed, especially like above the lip. You know. What up, Daisy Blue? Yes, this is Stampy. What up, Red? This is Stampy. I'll give him a couple more Stampy snacks. Since you're all here. And Stampy likes snacks. That's one, buddy. Do. Oh, I don't have answers. I just have more questions.
Unfortunately, nobody seems terribly interested in funding my research, but
I am. I will fund your research.
Yeah,
That'd be cool.
that'd be cool.
So completely unwarranted. I just met you. This is crazy. Here's my number. Call me maybe. Thank you for the follow. Completely unwarranted hype train has started. Feel free to contribute.
I don't know who I am anymore. I'm getting too much money.
It's true. It's too much money. James, thank you for the 67. 67.
So, just smoke the weed.
I got back there in time, Ben. I got back there in time. I do have something for you. I found this channel, and this is the suffering of Dave.
many whiskers. One might say you have too many whiskers.
And that is entry number 1 in The Suffering of Dave. There are more entries, and we'll be watching more of that in the future. Poor Dave. Poor Dave. All right. For those of you, what up, Ducky? For those of you who are not fans of the AI, The Economist.
Alex, what is AI going to do to our jobs?
So, of course, there's a lot of fear right now about what AI is going to do to the white-collar workforce, and it's true that it could wreak havoc, but I think it's much more likely to reshape jobs rather than to erase them altogether. I think the proper way to think about this is that the future white-collar office
what up, Aswarp?
Is going to look less like a robot and more like a cyborg, where AI and humans are jointly working together.
We've heard so much about an AI apocalypse. Where's your optimism coming from?
So I think it is useful to do two things. First, it's useful to actually look at the data and see what's happened over the past 3 years. And then second, it's useful to look at past technological revolutions and what happened during those. So if you actually look at the data over the last 3 years and what happened to white-collar jobs, you actually see that white-collar employment has increased by 3 million jobs, whereas blue-collar employment has stayed relatively flat over the first 3 years. Certain occupations that have often been casted as the victims of AI, think software developers, think paralegals, think radiologists. These are occupations that share a lot of overlap with the capabilities that AI can do, and yet we've actually seen that these jobs too have seen massive employment increases over the last 3 years. Software developers are up 7%, radiologists are up 10%, and paralegals have actually seen employment increase by 20% over the last 3 years. So there's been large employment gains, but then wages too. We see that white-collar workers continue to earn 1/3 more than blue-collar workers, which says that there is something distinct about office work that continues to command.
But are the wages going up?
And a wage premium over blue-collar work.
What has been the impact in the past of technological change?
With new technologies, there are always dire predictions for what the future of work is going to look like. Even during the computer age, you had Nobel Prize economists predicting that the white-collar workforce was going to be completely eradicated in the coming decades. Obviously, that's not what we've seen. What we've seen instead is that computers, the internet, have been a boon for white-collar workers. Since the early 1980s, employment in white-collar work has more than doubled. Real wages, which are adjusted for inflation, have increased by 1/3 for white-collar workers since the early 1980s. And I don't want to oversimplify. There has been some job displacement because of computers. Usually this is in routine work that is easily codifiable, think typists, which were completely.
Excuse me. So I think that's the port. That's the important part. The port. It's that which is codifiable. What can the AI be taught to do or simulate doing to the point where there is insufficient difference to the capitalist on keeping a human doing that job, and more likely you start breaking the tasks of that job up amongst the remaining humans that you do choose to employ.
Tasks. And I think that this view does not hold weight for a few reasons. First of all, AI, even with the impressive capabilities that it has today, it can still fully automate very, very few roles. And so there was a report that
roles, right? This is the framing, right? Don't talk about the tasks that it can automate. talk about the roles that it can fully automate. Because when you talk about the roles, well, obviously, there's things that the AI cannot do. So therefore, those jobs will be protected from forever because nothing ever changes. There is that, Stellar Wingman. When you start to look at what tasks can be automated, now you start getting into varying degrees of potential job loss. Again, the example that I always use is if you have 10 people and you can automate 20% of the tasks with AI, you now have 8 people. And you can take that money and either reinvest it into your company or give it out to shareholders.
That came out by Anthropic late last year that found that only in 4% of occupations could AI automate 75% of the job, and that there were very few roles where AI could automate 100% of the job. And so what this means is,
can you say that again?
Could AI automate that found? So there was a report that came out by Anthropic late last year that found that only in 4% of occupations could AI automate 75% of the job, and that there were very few roles where AI could automate 100% of the job. And so what this means is,
but there are roles that can be fully automated.
Oftentimes we oversimplify what a job actually is. Job consists of many different tasks. Some of them will be automatable through with AI. But what this will do instead, similar to past technological revolutions, is it will shift the sort of work that people are doing. So yes, data analysis, coding, a lot of these cognitive tasks will be able to be automated by AI. And the most likely effect is that jobs
What up, Michael Richard?
will then continue to adjust, expand, and the sort of work that humans are doing will continue to shift.
Projectionist is one of those, they used to be a skilled profession because you had to, again, Fight Club, the cigarette burn. You had to be able to line that up and cut to the next projector if you had a true real film, something along those lines. Now, all you got to do is have the kid push the button on the DVD and it plays the film.
And this is something that actually, if you look at the data, you're already starting to see in the labor market.
So what does that data show?
We found that a lot of the jobs that combined both technical work and human skills, think roles that involve a lot of coordination.
I just met you. This is crazy. Here's my number. Call me maybe. Thank you for the follow.
Such as project managers, roles such as information security analysts. These occupations have actually seen employment expand by more than 30% over the last 3 years. So there is a subset of occupations that are really, really expanding rapidly. The only group of occupations that we actually saw shrink over the last 3 years were occupations that could be considered routine back office roles. Secretaries and administrative assistants, for example, have seen employment shrink by 20% over the last 3 years.
And that speaks to another thing that I talk about in Straight Dope is the idea that the union can only help you in this scenario in a job where the people, right, are required, and those people have to be union. If you can get around the people by automating the tasks, then you don't need the union. Union power is because people need the human being, right? The people who do like the lighting and the sound on films and all that kind of stuff, these are humans that are required in order to do that job. If something like Dance 2.0 comes out and is able to create film creation without needing that lighting, where it can be someone sitting at a desk typing stuff into a computer, then the union doesn't have any power anymore under that scenario.
This is, of course, a concern, but we see it more as a continuation of a past pattern rather than sort of a structural shift.
And under that scenario, let's say, on one hand, you have a shop, right? Like a movie creation industry that utilizes real biological humans to create human-made movies. And then on the other hand, you have the movie shop that is driven by AI, right? They utilize AI in order to fill many of those roles. Which of those two are going to receive the most investment? Right? And then once you get away from the investment, what are you left with? Now, I'm not saying that human created movies are going to go away. I actually think that's highly unlikely. I just think that the majority of your blockbusters, whatnot, are going to be created under that second paradigm. And one can say, well, then you won't have actors. You won't have your, George Clooney's, your Brad Pitt's, your Tom Cruise's, and whatnot. There was a time before you knew who any of those people were, right? There were movies being made, and then those people showed up. Theoretically, you could create AI actors that occupy that same space. They didn't exist, and now you are aware of them, and you enjoy what they bring to the table. And maybe you are a connoisseur and you appreciate, again, the humanness of it all. And it's something that AI could never do. And there will be a market for that. Brad Cruz. Who doesn't love a good Brad Cruz? But where's the money going to go? I've got longshoreman buddies, and the last few strikes have been about slowing the replacement process in areas where they will be redundant, and the union had to get really creative in justifying strike and subsequent negotiations. Yeah, it is. That is what a lot of these negotiations and these new contracts are, is staving off that automation and making sure that people remain employed. And that's great, right? Like, I am a fan of people having money to not die. I just think we need to think bigger than that. We need to think of change on a more grand scale and think about people who aren't working, who aren't covered by the union. Sure.
Of AI.
Alex, does this mean we can stop worrying about the destruction of white-collar jobs?
So I know I've been painting a somewhat optimistic picture. I think that there is certainly risks as well that are important to acknowledge. The first is that models are becoming ever more capable. There are a lot of benchmarks that show the capabilities of models, and the most recent models by Anthropic, their Claude models, can now do software tasks continuously for more than 5 hours. And the rate at which these models are increasing over the past couple of years has doubled every 7 months. So there is this one concern is that the models just continue to get better and better. The second concern is that entry-level jobs are the ones that are most highly vulnerable and highly exposed to what AI can do. So interns, entry-level analysts, entry-level programmers could see possible disruption, and thinking through what this means for career ladders for workers who are just joining the labor force is something that should be taken seriously. And then the third concern is that a lot of the jobs that we have seen employment decrease the most over the past 3 years, such as these back office occupations, are also the workers who are least adaptable to finding new work. And so a lot of thinking needs to be done in how to help workers that do lose their job because of AI, how to help them transition into new roles. But with that being said, overall, I think despite all of the sort of dire predictions and all of the calls for a white-collar jobs apocalypse, I do believe that white-collar work will continue to adjust, and most probably it will continue to expand as well.
Alex, thank you so much.
And I guess we shall see. All right, let's take a look at this trailer for The Bride from Warner Brothers.
Anybody help me? Please. I didn't want this. I didn't want any of this!
Oh, shit.
Please. Help. Help. What happened?
You had an accident.
An accident, huh?
We dug you up, and we brought you back to life.
Is that Bale?
Get on stage, and I call her by her first name.
What did you want with a dead girl?
I'm the same, born from the dead. I am a monster.
Yeah, so am I.
This world is a black hole.
The corrupt are going to see life is here and it's coming to you from the monsters.
Yes! Yes!
Everybody dance! Everybody sing! Everybody move!
Please don't hurt me, please. I'm sorry.
What are you sorry for? Did you do something wrong? Something you thought you might get away with?
Stop right there!
Screaming my name!
The dead have got something to say. And I'm saying it.
The bride of Frankenstein.
No, just the bride. Scared?
Yeah, that looks pretty fantastic. Written and directed by Maggie Gyllenhaal. Interesting. Thank you, Stiller Wingman. All right, up next, Pete Kegseth versus Dario Amodei.
Here's something I've been glued to that I think more people need.
Yeah, it's Charlie.
Need to be made aware of because it's very serious. Right now, there is a slap boxing match that's been going back and forth between Pete
What up, Raza?
Kegseth and Anthropic. And really, it's the entire Pentagon versus Anthropic. They're behind Claude, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. the military wants unrestricted access to Anthropic's AI. And they have a contract in place, and right now, Anthropic is planting its feet and lat spreading, refusing to be bullied into giving them unrestricted access.
The CEO of one of the biggest AI companies in the world is meeting with Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth today as the Pentagon threatens to essentially blacklist that company, Anthropic, from lucrative government contracts if the AI company doesn't lift its restrictions on how the military can use its technology. The Pentagon has a $200 million contract with Anthropic, and a source tells CNN that the
Sorry, one moment. Somebody just dropped something into chat or into the Discord. Hydron, if you can hear me, I don't think you're restricted or any. Are you any mods? Oh yeah, Ben, biggest of Bens, if you're here. Do you see Hydron the Inquirer? If so, it says the message is being checked by mods and has not been sent, which is weird. As far as I know, Hydron, that's a Twitch thing. I can't imagine why anybody would have banned you in this channel.
company has concerns over two issues: AI-controlled weapons and mass domestic surveillance of American citizens.
Sounds pretty reasonable to me. Yeah, that one passes the smell test. Those are very legitimate concerns, and Anthropic wants these restrictions in place to ensure that its AI can't be used for mass surveillance of American citizens or autonomous AI weapons. And because of their reluctance to concede on that, Pete Hegseth has been stomping his feet, bench pressing 315, and has given them a deadline till Friday.
Press X to doubt.
To play ball with them or risk being blacklisted. And the reality of the situation is, even if Anthropic doesn't budge and they wipe their ass with the contracts, numerous other AI companies will step up and just gladly take the bukkake from the Pentagon with completely unlimited access, no restrictions to their AI. But right now, Anthropic is the most powerful and the one that they really want, which is why they're trying so hard to get them to release these restrictions and let them use it for whatever they want. Which, again, the main things from Anthropic that they are very concerned about is the mass surveillance of American citizens and AI autonomous weaponry. Again, I think those are very reasonable restrictions to keep in place to ensure that the AI can't be used for those two things, because it fucking shouldn't be. If anyone here has ever watched Terminator or any sci-fi movie where AI assumes...
Okay, I agree, but not for those reasons, right? Like, people do this thing where, like, you know, with the Terminator and that, have you not seen the movie? Yeah, that's not how it's going to happen. There's nothing about that. The most likely scenario is war games, right? The classic Matthew Broderick 1980s joint with Whopper, and where it just enters into a end game state where it's looking to carry out what it has decided to do, and it is difficult or impossible for the humans to interfere. That is a more likely scenario than, you know, the robots rising up and wiping out humanity.
Direct control of the military and everything goes tits up. You've seen this exact storyline play out in those montages that give you the lore breakdown for how we got there. Like, it's crazy to see it unfolding now in real time in the real world. Obviously exaggerating a bit, not quite to that level yet, but it is extremely serious. And I think any reasonable person would agree with these kind of restrictions, because AI shouldn't be used for mass surveillance on American citizens. And
oh yeah, and then Raza, that's actually why I tell people, when when you use the language of AI did this and AI did that and AI did the third, you are doing that same kind of thing, right? You are saying, oh, it wasn't, you know, Elon Musk and it wasn't X that did the thing. It was Grok, right? It was the AI that did it. If you give a pass and recenter talking about this is the AI did something, one, you're talking about it, granting it a level of autonomy that it just doesn't have. But two, you let these assholes get off scot-free. The AI didn't do anything. The humans behind it used it to do a particular thing that they wanted to do. And like you say, they wanted to do it to use as a shield. It wasn't us that kicked a bunch of people off the voter rolls or off social programs. It was the AI, you know what I mean? I see nothing being blocked. I see the screenshot of messages saying that something was blocked, but I check Hydron's message history and nothing looks like it was blocked. In that case, I'm going to say, Hydron, unfortunately, you're having a Twitch issue, not a Globus the Elder issue. And I hope you can get that figured out. You might need to uninstall and reinstall Twitch if you're watching it on a mobile, and if you're doing it on PC, then I can't even begin. Maybe delete your cache or something.
And under no circumstances should physical attacks be determined by AI with no human.
They're having a problem in Twitch, and they posted what's happening in Discord. Like before, I will fight the fight and win the war. Wolf Glenn, 7 months. Thank you very much, homie. I appreciate it.
Input whatsoever. It shouldn't be making targeting decisions without human input. Like, fully autonomous AI weaponry is a terrible fucking idea. And actually, the CEO of Anthropic did an interview going over these two things because he's not backing down on them.
That's one reason why I'm worried about the autonomous drone swarm, right? So, the constitutional protections in our military structures depend on the idea that there are humans who would, we hope, disobey illegal orders. With fully autonomous weapons, we don't necessarily have those protections.
Now, for what it's worth, I'm no fan of Anthropic. There is no AI mega corporation you'll catch me waving the...
No, they were Twitch messages, and then a screen cap was posted in Discord. Twitch messages posted in Discord. You had it right, Michael.
Number one foam finger around for and advocating for and glazing or anything like that. I think all of these companies are greedy as fuck, controlled by shady vampire ghoul creatures. And I know Anthropic has built up somewhat of a reputation for being the good guys in AI. But I am not one of the people that actually believe that at all. But he's 100% right. Fully autonomous weaponry cannot disobey an order, even an illegal one. It will always follow through, no matter what, unquestionably. And that's not a good thing. That's not a positive thing. I'm sure a lot of you have probably seen a lot of those, like, YouTube videos or, like...
Yeah, I just tried to unban you, Hydron, and you're not banned in this channel.
A long time ago, the Reddit story that would circulate like once a year for the big updoots talking about the man who potentially saved the world, Stanislav Petrov, who was an officer during the...
King shit. Petrov is king shit.
Cold War era, and while on duty, he received a ping from the early warning system alerting him to incoming United States missiles. He believed that it could have been a false alarm, so he decided to go against protocol, and instead of reporting the incoming missiles, he waited. And it turns out his hunch was correct. It was a malfunction in the early warning system, but the standard protocol dictates that he was to report these incoming missiles, which could have led to a retaliation from the Soviets, which would have led to a retaliation from the US and could have been a nuclear disaster. There's been a lot of debate about whether or not that would have even happened had he reported the missiles, because there would have been other checks that would have went into place potentially, but with such high tension and such little time with incoming missiles, there's a lot of speculation that, yes, had he reported it, they could have immediately just decided to retaliatory strike the US. Regardless, what is irrefutable is that he made the right decision by disobeying protocol, disobeying like the order of operations here, by not reporting those missiles. He made sure that there wasn't a nuclear disaster. It was the right call. The point I'm making is the ability to disobey an order or not follow through on protocol is something that's important. And there's tons of examples of it. I just chose this because I think it's the one some of you have probably heard of. So there's no benefit to having fully autonomous AI weaponry that can't disobey anything and has to follow through on everything without question.
Update these protections appropriately. So, think about the Fourth Amendment.
The concern that you get, right, is if a nation, any nation, is developing towards semi-autonomous weaponry. Right? What up, Zach? Always a possibility. Then warfare is a matter of speed, right? Get there the firstest with the mostest, right? This is fundamental. And you are going to have the adversarial country, even if it just believes that the first country is developing that, they are going to counter, right? And try to develop their own. And they're going to go right up to that edge of human in the loop is like the last point. But now you have a situation where humans are, on this scale, slow. So somebody potentially could take it to that next level to not get caught off guard. And then you just get right up into autonomous weaponry, and the human in the loop moves back a stage. All right, once they commit, not execute, but commit, then the universal basic cocaine. I mean, then like once they commit, now the thing is autonomous. And it's like, okay, the actual human in the loop is now, once you turn the system on, right? Right now it's off, right? So it's just chill. But if we turn the system on, it's autonomous after that. But the human in the loop is the person who turns it on. And you just keep moving that back and back and back in order to attempt to maintain a strategic advantage over your adversary. And it doesn't matter who these two countries are, right? That is the interest in not falling that far behind.
It is not illegal to, put cameras around everywhere in public space and, record every conversation. It's a public space. You don't have a right to privacy in a public space. But today, the government couldn't record that all and make sense of it. Right. With AI.
What up, Digital?
The ability to transcribe speech, to look through it, correlate it all. You could say, oh.
I'm sure the North Korean AI is the best AI. Dear leader said so. And it's, but it's only for the people, right? It's only for the people of North Korea.
There's this, this person is a member of the opposition. This person is expressing this view, and make a map of all, 100 million. And so are you going to make a mockery of the Fourth Amendment by the technology finding kind of tech?
And the mockery of the Fourth Amendment. Oh, I don't know. What if, right? We're doing imaginings, we're doing world building. What if, right, you had in the United States, in your story, right? We're writing a story. A paramilitary, I just met you. This is crazy. Here's my number. Call me maybe. Thank you for the follow. If you had this paramilitary group, you almost definitely were following, and every so often, Twitch just like kicks people off the rolls. It's a thing that happens. Like I got the song alert, but I didn't get a visual alert that you followed. So who even knows? But let's say you had this paramilitary group, and this paramilitary group was given authorization by their command structure that they could just go into people's homes because there was the suspicion that such a thing was happening, right? Now, again, totally fanciful, couldn't happen here. The nature of, the United States with all freedom and everything else, we would never allow that to happen here. But you can imagine if something was like that. Yeah, 99 red balloons floating in the summer sky. Both the English and German version are quite excellent.
Technical ways around it.
He then goes on to say that maybe we need to like update a lot of these protections to encompass things like AI finding workarounds for it. And the point he is making is that this kind of implementation of AI could very much make a mockery of the Fourth Amendment, flushing it down.
99 sich Luftballons. Something like I don't know enough German in order to pull that off, Red. I'm doing it from memory. But that's my effort. I'll give you effort.
The shitter. His point is, even though it's not illegal to have cameras in public all over the place, out the wazoo till the cows come home, without AI, they can't like piece together everything, comb through everything, make a map of people that's, opposition, stuff like
What up, Dr. Kochi?
that. But with AI, they can. Mass surveillance is made much more possible. It would circumvent protections of things like the Fourth Amendment.
Did y'all see? I know as fans of James from the internet, y'all are well aware of the whole Ring camera situation. But how many of you are also sports ball enjoyers who happen to watch during the Super Bowl that, hey, we're just gonna use these Ring cameras to help find people's lost dogs? I saw that and I was like, there is an unfortunate number of people who are gonna believe this shit hook, line, and sinker.
He's right. So he is not backing down on these things, which is what's causing so much friction with Pete Hegseth and the Pentagon, which I really feel like any sensible person should see and be extremely concerned, because I think these are reasonable restrictions. Now, unfortunately, like I said, even if Anthropic does stick to their guns here and it does cost them this contract, it doesn't just die there. It doesn't fizzle out. OpenAI and XAI have made it pretty clear they're willing to just, with a wide open mouth, just take the golden shower, let them use it for things like mass surveillance or autonomous AI weaponry. Like they're totally fine with completely unrestricted access, which had my jaw on the floor because XAI is Elon Musk's company. You're telling me Elon Musk would be okay with mass surveillance? No.
Brock, is this true?
Oh, not that guy. No, I'd eat my left shoe. I don't believe that for even a second. Maybe he just doesn't know. Yeah, that's probably what it is. Anyway, though, I do think this is something everyone should care about. I feel like the restrictions are reasonable, and the military should have no qualms about not being able to be used for mass surveillance on American citizens or a complete...
I can't believe Charlie actually got all those words out of his mouth in a row without just breaking.
Completely autonomous AI weaponry. Maybe that's a hot take, maybe I'm on the crack pipe, but I think those restrictions are totally fair, and it's kind of alarming that they're making such a huge stink about it and going to, like, outright saying they're going to blacklist Anthropic should they not lift those limitations. Don't think that's a good thing. It makes it seem like they want to use it to spy on every American citizen, and they want to use it for autonomous AI weaponry. Those aren't good things. That's how it's looking here. So yeah, just wanted to yap about this a bit. That's it. See ya.
Up next, y'all are familiar with Flamethrower Dog. This is the new model of the dog underneath the flamethrower. For those of you who don't do commie units, a kilogram is 2.2 pounds. So that is a 226-pound person on top of the robot dog. Straight dope every single time.
Researchers have made major progress.
All right. So that's neat. What if we did biological artificial intelligence? How did oh, I see. I was going to ask how you got banned in the Majority Report. But right off rip, I could tell how you got banned in the Majority Report. So enjoy your time here, however long it lasts.
Researchers have made major progress in turning brain organoids, yes, the tiny human brains you can grow in a literal jar if you want to, into AI, artificial intelligence that is made out of human brains. In case you're not familiar, yes, you can take stem cells. Those are kinds of cells that can turn into any other cell. You could turn them into an entire person and clone them if you wanted to, but you can also just turn them into neural tissue and they'll grow into a miniature version of a human brain. They're used,
as you say, Ghost, as you say,
for all sorts of different things, and they're very promising for treating things like strokes or even Parkinson's or healing spinal damage. Some people are interested in them in terms of what they can tell us about how things impact our brain.
What about what?
And others want to turn them into biological AI with the capacity for sentience. Some researchers have claimed sentience, and it's led to some of the most interesting arguments that I've seen in science. This group had them play Pong. I've seen other groups teach them how to play Pac-Man. They can learn and grow and develop, and they can be trained on dopamine or order or disorder. They don't like being randomly shocked, but their capacity to...
Do you like to be randomly shocked?
...who have an experience has led people to consider them sentient, at least some people. Other groups have called their claims...
No, I didn't go corporate. I did get a real job, which definitely cuts into my streaming schedule. And this week, I didn't even tell y'all about this week. This week, Monday, I actually had the day off and I was planning on streaming, but then ended up spending 9.5 hours at the mechanic while they did a whole bunch of shit to my car. Yay. And then I'm sure they claim it was completely unrelated. But after they ran a fuel system cleaning, now my car runs like shit. And they say it had nothing to do with the fuel system cleaning. But then when I contacted a dealership mechanic, they were like, I have no idea why they did a fuel system cleaning to your vehicle. So now what I'm hoping for is just to run out this tank of gas, because that's where fuel system cleaners go, and that, as if by magic, it will stop running like shit.
to be irresponsible in letters, which is essentially open communication between research groups to the public. They even responded to that response in a letter, saying that no, they actually do exhibit sentience. This is an argument that goes on, but it's becoming difficult to say that they really aren't. Now, some of the original limitations on growing them has been size and longevity, because they would end up perishing of hypoxia. However, some researchers have figured out how to keep them alive for 5 years or more. I've talked about that one. They needed a media that supported their neurons firing. Essentially, they don't do very well, and they eventually just give up if the neurons aren't going anywhere. As for hypoxia, yeah, you can give them a vascular system. You can even give them a little organoid heart if you really want to. The primary limitations are going to be what they are developing in, and of course they are tiny. You kinda need a whole skull in order to grow a functional brain, but some research groups have
And I've used those, Ben, you know, and could be placebo effect, could be not. It's like whatever. Maybe it did some, but this was some professional shit allegedly. And again, it's not called for in my service, plan, schedule, whatever the hell. And like, I'm just hoping the damage isn't permanent. I'm just hoping that it's just interfering with its ability to. I'm getting a cylinder 3 misfire, if that means anything to you people. And it's a pain in the ass, and I hope it doesn't continue.
tried to overcome that by putting them together like Legos or having independent brain organoids train each other. This research group assembled them with axons, so little neural connections between organoid globules, and they can communicate in a loop. They even have an idea of which organoid they are communicating to, and they can learn together. This one was interesting because they actually synced up and had really similar neural activity, and they could communicate with each other directly or indirectly.
This is more or less what they told me to do, Stellar, is to run it harder than you're used to, right?
Directly if there's another organoid between them. This really shows that we are rapidly developing how to use them. Now, what about goal-directed tasks? This research group set them up in another video game. This one involves a cart game. They wanted to demonstrate definitively that yes, they are indeed learning, and they set up a few different conditions, one of which the little organoids would learn to play the game continuously. The other ones would get random reinforcement, or they would have some mix of the two, and of course the ones that were given a single continuous task in which they learned how to play the same game, they did much better at learning it. I also want to say that I like that this group included rest cycles in between playing the video games. It seems that they do better if they have a break. Now remember, these little guys are trained on dopamine and discomfort, so they have demonstrated the capacity.
I mean, my spark plugs are new. They put in new spark plugs, right? Less than 6 months ago. So like, and this is my thing, right? I have trust issues when it comes to a mechanic. So when I find one that I think I can trust, I form what might be an unhealthy relationship, right? Because I need to trust someone with my vehicle who's not going to say a bunch of words that I don't understand. Because I don't understand cars in that way. And like, I know what's going on, right? Piston goes down, sucks in air and fuel in an aerosolized form. Piston goes up, compresses that, and it hits the spark plug and explodes, which drives the piston down, right? Like, this is the, like, I understand what's going on. The oil lubricates the system, then it's fed into the drivetrain, which turns the wheels. Like, I understand it, like, very high level, right? I might even be able to figure it out if I opened it up and started playing with it, but it's not my, not if you have fuel injection. See, I could be completely wrong. What up, Bracken?
To have a preference, and if they have a preference, they have an experience which would fall within sentience. Consciousness is a much higher bar. It requires you to have a concept of self, and humans really can't agree on consciousness. I mean, we did figure out that some fish can recognize themselves in a photograph, not just a mirror. I can't always recognize myself in a photograph. I have a mild.
And that blows my mind. How do you know that the fish recognized itself in a photograph? Like, did you ask it? Like, what is going on there?
Form of face blindness, mind you. I'm not sure that everyone will ever agree that AI could be conscious or that the brain organoids were conscious, even if they demonstrated skills that would suggest it. These guys do learn faster than artificial intelligence at playing these games, and I'm not really sure what that means or if we are seeing that they might be more intelligent than AI. What do you think? When the robots rebel, or the biohybrid robots, I'll probably be the person to tell you about it. I'm on their side. Follow for more.
All right. What up, Andy? I don't trust mechanics at all. Had a Goodyear branded shop tell me they needed some number of hours to entirely drop the tank to check the fuel pump inside. I happen to know that there was an access hatch right behind the seat to pull the pump out, right? And that, yes, like, you feel me? You feel me? You know, it's like such treasures. I wish I knew a mechanic in real life. They would get all of my work, right? Yeah, and that's kind of what I think might be happening, Ben, and I'm just hoping that, like, over time it just, breaks it up enough that I can continue to. I have no interest in trying to get a new car, a new old car. That it was not on my agenda for quite some time. I was going to ride this thing till it fucking died, and it would be a lot cooler if it didn't do that now. Gemini 3.1 Pro and the downfall of benchmarks. Welcome to the vibe era of AI. The new t-shirt is old news. It really is. I just haven't had time to work on stream at all. Also, hello, Walking.
Latest, and some would say greatest, AI model has just been released. Gemini 3.1 Pro. And in the 24 hours...
You're having a hackathon? They're all AI first? But AI doesn't work, Digital. AI is a waste of time. You should just do it. You should just code it all yourself. Right? So, what up, Ribbons? Perfect timing, Ribbons. Perfect timing. I allowed myself to post something on Facebook regarding AI water usage. I wanted to talk about the water usage thing because somebody posted something on Facebook. No, we're not going to look at my Facebook. I'm going to read to you. So somebody posted a thing. The World Health Organization has announced that we will start running out of clean water, drinking, showering, laundry, dishes in the next capitalized few years. We are officially entering water bankruptcy. This is a direct result of AI. Please stop using it now. Community note. This report came from the United Nations University Institute for Water, Environment, and Health, not the WHO. It does not identify AI as a major contributor to water usage. Instead, it suggests AI is a tool to help monitor usage. The report states water systems damage has actually come from climate change, over extraction, pollution from agriculture, and industry, deforestation, and wetlands destruction, and poor agricultural practices. And so someone messaged me directly because they're a friend of mine, and they're like, also sorry. Didn't want to have a heated debate, blah, blah, blah. I consult on AI and automation for work, and LLMs are not AI. There's no thinking. You have to know that, considering you're pretty informed. It's just giving a string of expected next words, one after the other. I'm curious as to what you're using it for, if you don't mind me asking. Initially, I used it to vibe code some stuff for work, but eventually I realized it would be faster if I just learned to code. Same experience when I started creative writing. I realized as long as I used it, I would be giving up the same amount of time trying to prompt something that works, whereas if I learn to do the task, I'll do it faster each time. Are you familiar with techno-feudalism? Yes, yes, the book, and I sent them the book or a link to Fully Automated Luxury Communism to show them the socialist messaging regarding that. I get it, and I was there not long ago, right? But they became enlightened. But the tech bros pushing this stuff are not steering us in that direction. Palantir and OpenAI are not like the good guys, lol. I have been streaming on Twitch about AI since 2023. So on and so forth, da da da. Gave him a nice, a nice response, And also pointing out that, we're currently chatting on a system owned by Meta, right? I'm familiar with the tools. Copilot is one of the things I consult on, which is essentially just an agent that can run on one of 5 models between Google and OpenAI. Please talk to me like I'm stupid. It makes me very happy. I say this because oftentimes I get hit with the "you're just a dumb Luddite who isn't prompting right." I get we might have varying definitions of AI because, of course, I mentioned that, but there is no intelligence behind LLMs or any capacity for them to ever wake up and do AGI or whatever, right? It's a glorified spell checker. Cool. And then we're talking about data centers, driving up the cost of living. This is not the road to luxury gay space communism. It's the road to parabel of the sower. Corporate cities privatized everything. That's what they want. No, but we could, Pharaoh, we could. Think about it this way. It's only capable of returning the most expected results based on the context you feed it. You prompt, it searches for examples to deliver the most predictable response. That's not how that works at all. 100%. By definition, this is how they work. It is not how they work, right? In what reality can something like that ever come up with novel solutions to problem? And I responded back, we already live in corporate cities with privatized everything. The last vestiges of anything other are being eaten by the current administration. And then, here's the thing. We have reached a point in the conversation based on certain keywords that you're unwilling to consider the possibility that you're wrong. Your confidence in your opinion is absolute. I am happy to have a discussion. I have no interest in a debate. And then they're like, yeah, I guess we've stumbled upon an impasse. And I know based on your language that you hate them and oversimplify their capabilities based on that hate. You must have a really hard time selling these products. I just find it fascinating that someone is attempting to sell AI while having no faith in the product at all. And that's just It's just sales, right? You have to believe that the product has value, or you're not going to be good at selling it. So that was fun. And it reminded me, I got frustrated. I got like not angry, but like angsty, right? And that whole kind of thing. And I just reached a point where, like, let's say I spend the next however many hours typing with my thumbs in an attempt to convince you that you're incorrect and there's more to these tools than you're willing to give them. What do I get out of that experience, right? At best, one more person who thinks that AI is a tool with utility as opposed to whatever you think it is now. But I don't actually get anything out of that. And that's how I feel about internet argument. What do I get out of this? Well, how does this improve my life? How does this improve my experience? And it doesn't. And the thing is, I had a perfectly nice conversation with another person in public on my Facebook page talking about it, and we at least came to some kind of agreement that even though they didn't like AI, they understood where I was coming from, and we closed that conversation with me saying that, like, the genie is out of the bottle. We're not going to be able to put it back in, and the best that we can do is the most good we can with what we have and try to mitigate harm. And that's all we can do at this point. So no matter how you feel about AI, wherever you are, that's how you should view it, right? Even if you're against AI and you think it's a terrible tool and we shouldn't be using it, you really should be looking at it as, how do we mitigate the harms and maximize the good that can be gained from this, in my opinion. And you can tell me to go fuck myself. Won't hurt my feeling.
Since release, as well as a short period of early access, I have tested it hundreds of times and, of course, read its model card. But here's the thing, for the average user, I want to get beyond the headline scores.
Yeah, that's really what it comes down to, Pharaoh. Like, if people want to learn stuff, more than welcome to come here. And if they don't, that's also good, right? Like, it's I am not the AI skeptic whisperer, right? Kill your ego. What up, Brad? How many bits for that to happen? For what to happen? What do you want to happen? And then I'll put a price on it.
And try to give you a sense of why every new hot take you see on X or YouTube or TikTok or podcast seems to contradict the last one you saw. Because there's actually a technical reason for the confusion over which model is best overall.
Because you ever hear James talk about his experience on debate panels? That's how I feel, right? Like, at this point in my life. I don't want to have a debate. I want to say a bunch of words in a row that makes you feel bad and question all the decisions that brought you to this point in your life. That is what I want to do, right? I might get some perverse sadistic joy out of absolutely fucking up the rest of your day and possibly week, right? And that's not good. I'm not saying that's good. I'm just saying, don't come for me, because that's debates do nothing. Internet debates do nothing. Twitch debates do nothing. And that's where I'm at. I will just don't ask me to come on your panel, because I might say yes.
I will say that there's one private benchmark, my own, that has recently seen a model pass a threshold that I think is worth talking about. First, 30 seconds of context, because you may well know that
See, now you got to change your name, Bread into circuses.
The pre-training stage of growing or training LLMs involves training them on internet-scale data. But that actually now only accounts for 20% of the compute that is spent on training LLMs. So it's the post-training stage, as I wrote about in my newsletter, where those generalist-based
I mean, Stellar Wingman, kind of, right? Like, under, the idea that the reason that they want to build data centers along the Great Lakes is because they'll have access to the fresh water. But there are days when you can't swim in Lake Erie because of bacteria. Lake Erie caught on fire one time, right? At least one time, possibly more times, right? Like the water caught on fire. that's not good. That is the definitional not good kind of thing. And it took a long time to get it somewhat cleaned up. They want, there are groups of people who want to put we've got some windmills on the shore, and they want to put some in the lake, and there are people that are against it. A bunch of those people are because they have nice houses on the lake with beachfront property, and they want, they don't want these windmills in the way of their view of the lake. But there's a lot of garbage buried under the soil at the bottom of the lake, and we probably should not stir that up. I had a girlfriend who worked at the company tested like groundwater and soil for various chemicals, and she would tell me how she would go out to these places that were along the lake. We had a place called Bethlehem Steel, right? They made steel here at one point in time. And she would walk along this marshy area, and her footprints would fill up with benzene. So that's cool. And I found out later she got cancer, and I hope she's doing well wherever she is. I hope she turned that around. Trans women, CEO of Trans Women. Yeah, no, fuck them, Pharaoh. The only online debates that might be worthwhile are one-on-one conversations. Conversations yeah, I separate the two. One could not, right? One could have a cordial conversation between two people where they attempt to get to some fundamental truth that could be classified as a debate. I know you do, trans women. Panel debates feel pointless unless there's a call-in show that you can get the audience to challenge whatever assumptions they came in with. That's fair.
Models are honed against internal benchmarks on specific domains. This includes using industry source data to get particularly good.
Yeah, no, I love it that the zebra mussels, right, are invasive and terrible for other reasons, but they helped clean up the fucking lake.
At perhaps your domain. Here's the catch. Just a year ago, that wasn't the case. Dario Amodei, CEO of Anthropic, said back then, the amount being spent on the second stage, RL stage, is small for all players. Why did I give you that context though? Well, because if one of these labs have data relevant to your domain and post-train their models to optimize for high scores in that area, then your experience of that model might be quite different to what other benchmarks say. In the older paradigm, if a model was clearly better in one domain, it was much more likely that they'd be better in many or all domains. That just isn't the case anymore. In fact, my second point in this newsletter was precisely an example of that. Many of you would have heard about the intense discussion surrounding Claude Code and all sorts of
toxic cyanobacteria is one of my favorite heavy metal bands.
Claude-powered agents that are now sweeping the web. So we're seeing exponential improvement, right, across the board. Well, let's take one chess puzzle benchmark made by Epoch AI, and more on them later. 5 months ago, Claude Sonnet 4.5, which is their smaller model compared to Opus, scored 12%. But just last week, Claude Opus 4.6, 5 months further on, scored just 10%. That's not to knock Claude Opus 4.6. I use it all the time. It's an incredible model at coding. And of course, if the AI labs wanted to improve this performance, they easily could. I think GPT 5.2 on extra high gets around 50%. But you could say chess is a fairly pure measure of a general kind of forward-thinking reasoning prowess. Back in the generalist era of AI, you would therefore expect chess performance to translate to all sorts of other domains. We're just not in that paradigm anymore. It's going to depend on the domain you're in. None of this is to say that Gemini 3.1 Pro isn't an incredible model. It is. In almost any domain you care to measure, it.
What up, Ecto Resto Dragon? And it is. And if you're in a legal area where you have legal cannabis that you can legally smoke in a legal area at a legal time in a legal place that you got from a legal place, and you can smoke it in a legal way with legal people, legally being the legal thing that you can legally do when you legally do it, smoke weed every day. But also, just smoke the weed, kids. They see me rolling, they hating. Patrolling, they trying to catch me riding dirty, trying to catch me riding dirty, trying to catch me riding dirty. And scene.
It will be competitive with the best other models like Claude Opus 4.6 or GPT 5.3. But you would be understandably slightly confused to see it being better in all sorts of coding benchmarks, measures of scientific reasoning and academic reasoning like GPQA Diamond and Humanity's Last Exam respectively, as well as general pattern recognition, ArcAGI2, and I'll come back to that. But yet in a head-to-head on GDP val, which is a broad measure of expert tasks that human professionals do that I've covered many times on the channel before, it falls seemingly quite far behind Claude Opus 4.6 and even GPT 5.2. Now yes, one big explanation of that is the domain specialization I talked about earlier. But there are 3 or 4 fascinating bits of context that I want you to be aware of in addition. First, let's zoom into ArcAGI2, in which its score of 77.1% puts it way ahead of Claude Opus 4.6, which is the more expensive model, which got around 69%. I start with this one because Demis Hassabis, CEO of Google DeepMind, featured it prominently in his Twitter post announcing the launch of Gemini 3.1 Pro. And on puzzles that shouldn't be in its training data, the Gemini 3 series outperforms all other models on a cost-efficient basis. But the first additional caveat comes from Melanie Mitchell, a famous AI researcher and professor. She pointed out that if they change the encoding from numbers to other symbols, accuracy goes down. Digging deeper, the group found that the numbers representing colors in the input can be used by LLMs to find unintended arithmetic patterns that can lead to accidental correct solutions. I wouldn't call that the model's cheating. They're using any shortcuts they can find to get the correct solution. Fair's fair. But it does remind us that even within a benchmark, how you set up the question matters. Okay, well, let's say you don't care about ArcAGI2 or Simple Bench or any other benchmark, just coding performance. Well, the creator of Arc series, the ArcAGI tests, Francois Chalet, has this to say. Sufficiently advanced agentic coding is essentially machine learning. A goal is given to the agent or agent swarm, and then the coding agents iterate until the goal is reached. As in other areas of machine learning, the result is a black box model. You have a code base that performs the task, but you don't necessarily inspect the internal logic. Just like how Gemini 3.1 may have found spurious patterns in ArcAGI, in your codebase, Claude or Codex may overfit to the spec, or may drift from your original concept. So the fallibilities presented in this video are relevant to you even if you only care about coding or letting your OpenClaw agents code for you. Gemini 3.1 Pro.
I was hoping. And it is. And if you're in a legal area where you have legal cannabis that you can legally smoke in a legal area at a legal time in a legal place that you got from a legal place, and you can smoke it in a legal way with legal people, legally being the legal thing that you can legally do when you legally do it, smoke weed every day. But also, just smoke the weed, kids. They see me rolling, they hating. Patrolling, they trying to catch me riding dirty, trying to catch me riding dirty, trying to catch me riding dirty. And scene. Perfect timing on the cut there. Not that anyone will get this outside of y'all. And it is. And if you're in a legal area where you have and it is. Yeah, I like I like that. I'm hoping I can get Red to step up their game on the thing. And because James is operating on the level of trying to debate everyone into the 420 legal. But the 420 legal thing, right? You did it once, I did it, and then I just did another one that I think is superior to my previous one. And yeah, there you go.
Indeed hit a record ELO in Live Code Bench Pro, which involves competitive coding problems. That's great, but you can turn that optimization dial a little too far. Let me show you what happened last night when I used Gemini 3.1 Pro inside Cursor. How could we reconcile these pages of pablum with the record-breaking ELO? Well, again, that's the theme of the video. If I sound unduly skeptical of Gemini 3.1 Pro, by the way, let me try to balance that out with heaping on some praise. On my private simple bench, a test of, you could say, trick questions or common sense reasoning, it beat its own previous record from Gemini 3 Pro and got 79.6%. That essentially brings it within the margin of error for the human average baseline, at least among the 9 participants that we used. And I do want to spend just 60 seconds on marking the threshold that I think this represents. All the time on podcasts and in articles, you hear about AI models being compared to professionals and experts, and phrases like superintelligence being banded around and recursive self-improvement. But what about comparing models to the average human? Now, sure, of course, you can find audio or visual puzzles that they will still fail at that the average human wouldn't. But in English, in text alone, I think it's worth marking the moment wherein I don't think you can write a test at which the average human, the average man or woman on the street, would clearly outperform frontier models. I'm not talking about exploiting tokenization bugs like how many R's in strawberry. I'm talking about a fair text-based test in English with a non-specialist human. Let me know if you disagree, but I think the passing of that threshold is a moment worth marking. I will note that even with Simple Bench, we get a reminder of the caveat I was just describing. Models are brilliant at shortcuts. And I had noticed as long ago as I think at least 12 months that because Simple Bench was a set of multiple choice questions, sometimes one of the answers being, for example, 0, would flag to the model that, wait, this might be a trick question. For example, if we go to try yourself, even in question 1 about frying eggs in a pan, the fact that there may be 0 ice cubes left in the pan, even as just one of the options, may alert the model to think, hang on, how could there be 0? How would that be possible? So what happens if you take away the multiple choice questions, get the models to answer in an open-ended fashion, and then get a blind grader model to compare their answers to the hidden correct answer? Well, you still get some pretty impressive scores, but just not quite as high. Call it a 15 to 20 percentage point drop. That's, by the way, a double reminder. Yes, models are taking shortcuts. Yes, if you ask the same question in a different way, performance may well be different. But it's not like performance dropped to 0. Frontier models are...
There's actually a thing, an article that I threw into the Discord a few weeks ago, talking about exactly that kind of thing. That all the people out there finding all the things that point to something being AI writing are tools that people are using to make the AI not look like AI writing. So good job there, I guess.
Genuinely getting better, even in domains they didn't directly train on. Time for the next big caveat before we return to the glory of the exponential. Let's take a look at the brand new Gemini 3.1 Pro and Anthropic's Claude Sonnet 4.6 from this week. How do they do in terms of hallucinations or factual accuracy? You'll notice that model providers don't often want to talk about or measure hallucinations anymore because that was predicted to be a solved problem by now. And on this release chart from Google, there wasn't a direct measure of hallucinations, but in fairness, they did cite this benchmark from Artificial Analysis, AA Omniscience. And on first glance, Gemini 3.1 Pro seems to shellac the other models. Gemini's top score of positive 30 compares to Claude Opus 4.6 getting positive 11, and Claude Sonnet 4.6 getting negative 4. And that's even accounting for penalizing hallucinations as well as rewarding correct answers. However, if we zoom in on just incorrect answers and whether the models hallucinated an incorrect answer or explanation versus refused to answer or admitted to not knowing the answer, Gemini 3.1 does well at 50% of its incorrect answers being hallucinations, but Claude Sonnet 4.6 is down at 38%, which is better. Interestingly, GLM5, a Chinese model, is even better at 34%. So hallucinations is definitely not a solved problem, and just because a model is optimized or better at its best does not preclude the possibility that it's worse at its worst. What's that saying? If you can't take me in my bad moments, you don't deserve me in my good moments. Well, for all models, you're going to have to handle that kind of trade-off. One quick note on the model card for Gemini 3.1, it's only 9 pages, and as ever, these model or system or safety reports will serve the purpose of de-hyping when the release post by the CEO or release video serves the purpose of hyping. For example, let's focus on Gemini 3.1 in the cyber domain. Well, if you are an Ultra subscriber, you can use DeepThink mode, and Google's model card says this: accounting for inference costs, the model with DeepThink performs considerably worse than without DeepThink. Even at high levels of inference, results for the model with DeepThink do not suggest higher capability than without DeepThink. Okay, that's DeepThink mode, which we might discuss another time, but what about just 3.1 Pro? Well, back to that specializing in individual domains. They found out that in one test of machine learning and R&D, optimizing the LLM Foundry involving fine-tuning, that 3.1 Pro could indeed reduce the runtime of a fine-tuning script from 300 seconds to 47 seconds, better even than the human reference solution of 94 seconds. But whereas before you might have read that as meaning that it's now going to accelerate its own self-improvement through machine learning R&D, you might now more so interpret that as being, oh, they added in some new fine-tuning data about fine-tuning, or an internal benchmark measuring fine-tuning performance. But enough with the caveats. What do all of these models from the last few weeks, including Gemini 3.1, show about what we're about to unleash on the world? Because many of the exponentials you do see are real and meaningful. But first, the sponsors of today's video, Epoch AI, because they recently featured, just yesterday, one exponential that you may not have heard of. That's that Anthropic's annualized revenue is 10xing per year until the tail end of 2025, whereas OpenAI's is 3.4xing per year, albeit starting from a bigger base. It's a big if, but if those trends continue, by mid-2026, we could see Anthropic out-earning OpenAI. And as you might have guessed, Epoch AI's research is one of the main ways that I stay on top of AI research and developments. I've been covering them for years, even before they were a sponsor, and their newsletter is also incredible. If you want to learn what powers some of these exponentials, of course, you'll have to focus on their frontier data center analysis. I had to actually double check with them that it was free. I just couldn't really believe it, but it is. Check out the unique link in the description. Back to the central question of whether benchmark performance measures general intelligence. Because I have given you lots of counter arguments, but Dario Amodei, the CEO of Anthropic, did raise a point the other day that really gave an insight into the bet that Anthropic is making. He was asked, why do you need all these RL environments specializing in Slack, for example, or browser use? Surely all of that's redundant if models are going to keep getting generally smarter. Amodei said this: yes, we're trying to get a whole bunch of data, not because we want to cover a specific document or specific skill, but because we want to generalize. For me, this is critical because what he is almost saying is that if you specialize in enough specialisms, you'll generalize to all specialisms. This is why later in the same interview, he said that we can get most of the way there to a AGI or superintelligence or country of geniuses in a data center without continual learning, without learning on the job, without you teaching the model about your domain. How could you get to superintelligence without that data? Again, in my words, I think he thinks that if you specialize in enough specialisms, there are only so many patterns to be deduced from human training data. Yes, they're going to work on continual learning in case that's not the case, but if it is the case, Anthropic might not need the data from your domain. Or maybe he says later, models will almost get there, but just need a...
What up, Bracket? I too am a general specialist. Or a specialist general.
bit more context.
I am the very model of a modern major general.
About your domain in the context window, in the prompt you give it. This is why he says, one idea they've got is just to make the context longer. There's nothing preventing longer context from working. You just have to train at longer contexts and then learn to serve them at inference. In other words, there might be a little bit of nuance in your domain that this generalist model doesn't know, even after specializing in all the specialisms. It might only generalize so much and need a bit more context from your domain. But Claude 4.6 can now absorb 750,000 words in its context window. In short order, that might be a couple million words. Maybe that's enough specific context from your domain for the model to do the rest. It can learn the patterns it needs in context learning, and finish off what it needs to do in marketing or software engineering or back office automation or data analysis or finance and accounting, as this chart of its activities and tool calls show. Amadei brought the conversation back to coding. He said, I don't think people would say that learning on the job, continual learning, is what is preventing the coding agents from doing everything end to end. They keep getting better. No, they didn't train on your code base, but they were better than you at improving it anyway, he's saying. That question then of to what extent do you need to train on all the different domains and subdomains versus generalized patterns across them will be one of the central questions of 2026 and 2027. If you want a deeper analysis on some of Amadei's points and some context behind the famous meter time horizon exponential, then do check out this recent post on my Patreon. Just one more word then on your hunt for that one true benchmark that measures general intelligence. The giveaway perhaps as to whether Amadei's bet is correct or not. Well, who would be the people most incentivized to have such a benchmark? The labs themselves. Because then they could do reinforcement learning with verifiable rewards on that benchmark. If there was a pure general intelligence benchmark, they could optimize against it and have the most generally intelligent model. Many of these benchmarks come from small teams with sub-$1 million budgets, but expecting those small teams to craft a benchmark that objectively captures real-world performance without overestimating it is expecting a lot. As one researcher at Meta said, that essentially means making more realistic reinforcement learning with the verifiable reward settings than labs, which is hard. That's why so many of the benchmarks now are written by the labs themselves. They're the only ones with the heft and budget to craft such benchmarks, although obviously that makes them somewhat biased. Now, this probably deserves its own video, but there is of course one truly objective benchmark, which is forecasting the future. And Metaculus have noted that the predictive performance of models is rising significantly. It's almost at the level of an average human forecaster from Metaculus. Not quite at pro level, but getting there. But I did have a quick side note on that. You've probably noticed how the world is going, unfortunately, wild for polymarket and predictive markets. I get the basic idea, but of course, for many people, it's just akin to gambling. But here's the question. What happens when there's so many OpenClaw agents out there that a model can just make money by changing something and making a prediction on it at the same time, gaming the system? How?
I don't even think about that. I know I thought about humans doing it, right? But like, do you see this Bitcoin 5-minute up or down? And then, not gambling, prediction for money. There's a difference. What that difference is, I couldn't tell you, but apparently there's a difference.
Long until we get the first unfiltered OpenClaw model that takes action in the real world to make it money on a prediction market, money which is perhaps fed back to the human controlling the model. In other words, even forecasting the future, which seems the purest benchmark of them all, is still slightly in the future susceptible to gaming. And finally, for this video, of course, there are benchmarks that are nothing to do with those we've discussed so far. What about speed as a benchmark? Check this out. My question is, tell me about SimpleBench, the LLM benchmark. And I'm recording live. Watch what happens. Boom.
Wow.
Full answer.
Mostly hallucinations. Fast hallucinations. Human beings can't be wrong this fast. Who is Globus the Elder? Question mark. And go. That was fast. There's no specific information available on a person or entity named Globus the Elder. Aw. It's possible that this is a name, handle, or username that is used by an individual, but I couldn't find any relevant details or context. Aw. However, Globus is a surname of Polish origin, which means sail in Latin. It's also the name of a river in Poland, the Globus River. Could you please provide more context about the question, such as where you found this name or what it is associated with? Twitch. Wow. It is fast. And then it's telling me what to do. You can try searching for Globus the Elder. Yes, I could. But what are you for? What up, Koss? Know where I could get someone to send me a NVIDIA DGX GB200 or Threadripper system with dual A6000s on loan for a year or free? No, but if you do, you'll be back like before. I will fight the fight and win the war. Ivan, motherfucking Neo, back 29 months. Holy cats. What is Chat Jimmy? No, Chat Jimmy is something I just found out about from this video. It's like super fast inference. This is new. Yes, no, Ivan's patience, like, it's fun when I see a problem child come into Ivan's chat and Ivan's zen when they try to like trigger some shit and Ivan's just like, it's very Neo, right? And the bullets just stop flying. You know what I mean? It's beautiful. Renelin Thought is a Twitch streamer and online personality known for their entertaining content and engaging with their community. Well, you're a partner, Red. And I definitely don't believe you just typed that into chat and definitely copied it from Chat Jimmy. I believe you. This is my believing face.
Unbelievable tokens per second. This is a model made for a chip, but that's a discussion for another day. I just think this portends a future where entire apps are created in a single millisecond. Then there's the benchmarks or questions that you may have that no one else has, and that's what I use lmcouncil.ai for.
And we can do that one as well, because I got it right here. Summoning the LM Council. You have to get Pro to use some of the models, which sucks. Like Claude, right? You have to upgrade. Who is John Galt? Who is Globus underscore the underscore elder? And go. And post. According to Mistral, Globus the Elder is a character from the game The Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim. He's a Daedric prince, a powerful and ancient being associated with the Daedric prince madness. Globus the Elder is known for his love of chaos and destruction, and often seeks to spread madness and confusion among the people of Skyrim. He is a major antagonist in the game and involved in several quests and storylines. The other two don't know who the fuck I'm talking about. Gemini's like, did you mean Pliny? That fucking guy? From Rome? I had no idea it was me either. So that's cool.
That's my own site, of course, and it's free currently to compare the responses of, say, Gemini 3.
Does it have Twitch info? This, the LM console is connected to models like Gemini Pro and GPT 5.2. If I talk to my Gemini and I say, who is Globus the Elder? Gemini this one might know more about me. Whoa, and it just doxed me. That's cool. Oh, don't show up at my house. You'll have the regret.
5.1 Pro and GPT 5.2. Lastly, what about bloody realism as a benchmark? Of course, it would have been hard for you to have avoided the talk of Seed Dance 2.0 from China's ByteDance, but I did think it was worth ending the video with maybe 45 seconds where you can see how it is a step up, I think, from VO 3.1 or Sora 2. If you're watching the video, you're seeing a video from Seed Dance 2.0, but even if you're listening, here's a comparison between, again, Seed Dance 2 and VO 3.1.
I'm so proud of my family. My sweetie, you're the heart of our family.
Folks, let's dance together to celebrate. I'll bring the music. I'll bring the music.
I'm so proud of my family. My sweetie, you're the heart of our family. Folks, let's dance together to celebrate. I'll bring the music.
In this domain, at least, the difference seems obvious to me. So there we have it. Of course, DeepSeek V4 is just around the corner, but what did you make of this video? And the swirling, ongoing debate about capturing the true general intelligence of models. Thank you so much for watching to the end, and have a...
I mean, to be fair, Red, you play, was it Titanfall? So technically, technically. I did enjoy the one time we got to play a video game together, Red. That was cool. Make me a video of redolent thought Globus the Elder James from the internet, and that one how's it spelled? Do. Oh, the rare point in time when they're not hanging out in my thing. Is it just BLK? I know it's missing a letter. Having a Royale Rumble for cake. The Globus the Elder on SoundCloud should be me. In case I have to sign in. They see me rolling, they hating. This is me. You can see the recursion frog. in it. This is back when I was using Udio.
We are the miners. Dig deep, dig deep. Pickaxe, swing it back till the earth's core glows. Gemstones, where you at? Feel the caverns close. Tin hats, maniacs in the mining zone.
That was fun. So this is us, Red.
Get out of the way, old timer! You'll never get this cake, kid! He's going for the cake! Get out of the way, old timer! You'll never get this cake, kid! He's going for the cake!
I wonder which one is you. Up next, the perils of the AI exponential.
Wonderful day.
Welcome back to the AI Daily Brief. Today we are talking about an update in the Meter Moore's Law for AI Agents chart. Opus 4.6, among others, is finally on the chart, with everyone scurrying around to understand the implications. Combined with that, a new research note from Citrini Research, which is rocketing around the pages of X and the internet more broadly, and it's an interesting case study in the moment in which we are in. Now, by way of background, I'm sure at this point that the vast majority of you are familiar with this chart from Meter, the Model Evaluation and Threat Research Lab. The chart comes from a continuous study and shows the longest time horizon tasks an AI agent can handle. It was first released in March of last year, and at the time, Sonnet 3.7 was the most advanced AI model available. Meter conducted their study going all the way back to GPT-2 and found that the time horizon of agentic tasks was reliably doubling roughly every 7 months. That's where the idea of this being a kind of Moore's Law for AI agents came from. That original report even suggested that the speed of improvement was accelerating, with the more recent models at the end of 2024 and early 2025.
Yeah, I can't argue in any way, shape, or form that that wasn't slop. I didn't I created slop. I created it live in front of all of y'all, and yeah, that was the thing that happened.
5, implying a doubling rate as fast as 3 months. The chart was a huge part of the discourse at the time and became even more significant towards the end of the year as we were overwhelmed by AI bubble talk. Now, as we've discussed, 2025 was the first year that we started to get some wobbles in the AI narrative. It started with the DeepSeek moment, which wiped $600 billion off of NVIDIA's market cap in January. And throughout the year, there was this kind of ping pong back and forth behind excitement, but also increasing skepticism. Now, one of the flavors of skepticism that is particularly relevant for those proclaiming AI bubbles in the markets had to do with performance plateaus and scaling walls. Basically, the short of it is that if AI actually hit a scaling wall where performance just wasn't really getting better.
One of the parts I skipped over talking about that conversation I had, was that they hit the fucking scaling walls.
Shredder is in the house! Find him over the barricade! He's a radical rat! Yeah, you're not the leads! Go to sleep, bitch! Go to sleep! Ladies
and gentlemen, brace yourself!
That most fearsome fighting team! We're really hip! They're heroes in a half-shell red and green! Hey, get
Why was He-Man in there?
Turtle power!
That was well-designed slop. That was Hamburger Helper, right? It's not good for you, but damn, does it taste good going down.
Anymore, that would make the bubble idea much more likely. The gist of it is that if AI can't improve from here, how could it possibly hope to justify these huge infrastructure deals that were predicated on the idea that it kept being more and more of a significant force?
So who starts streaming at 8 o'clock? Because that's one of the times I noticed that there's a dip. There's like a percentage of it. Is that Rhizome? Does Rhizome start at 8? Who starts at 8? That a bunch of my viewers might run off to go watch whatever they're watching. I assume it's like the 15th streamer today talking about the same news story. I'm thinking start because they bounce at like around 5 to 8 Eastern. So I assume that it's someone who's just starting and they're getting there for the pre-stream warm-up. Rise started, okay, so it wasn't Rhizome, it's somebody else. This time it was about, I don't know, 15 people? About 15 people bounced out at like the same time. So I assume they're going to watch someone who just started streaming. And again, like, by all means, enjoy yourself. You get a limited amount of time on this earth. Don't spend it not doing things that you don't enjoy.
In the economy. This is why by the end of the year, as the bubble narrative took hold, many were calling it the most important chart in the economy. It was in many ways the bulwark holding back the full tide of AI bubble pop narratives. Now, before we dig into the latest findings, it is worth noting a little bit on what the meter studies actually say and what they do not say. The studies are designed around a set of software engineering tasks ranging from the trivial to the complex. Human engineers were tasked with solving each problem, and their times were used as a benchmark. For example, if a human engineer takes 2 hours to complete a task, that task has a time horizon of 2 hours, regardless of how quickly an AI can complete it. In other words, and this is the mistake you see most often on the internet, the metric is not a measure of for how long an AI agent can continuously work. It is a measurement of how difficult a problem an agent can solve, measured in comparative human time to solve the same problem. If a task that takes a human coder 2 hours is solved by Claude in 2 minutes, it still yields a 2-hour time horizon. The other element of the study worth understanding is how Meter determines success for a task. The researchers aren't
probably another half hour
looking for perfect reliability, as they're trying to measure the capability frontier. Instead, their core finding that features on the viral chart requires an AI agent to produce a correct answer 50% of the time. Meter also has a secondary finding that requires an agent to deliver the correct response 80% of the time, which, as you would imagine, results in a much lower time horizon. To avoid saying it every time, whenever I'm referring...
You got a link to this mother of night cheese? I know some people, like especially fans of Redolent Thoughts, cheesy movies that they watch, might enjoy 70s and 80s horror movies. Like there's probably a crossover there.
To time horizon in the Meter report, I am referring to that standard 50% success rate unless I say otherwise. The point is that these metrics aren't about benchmarking the model's ability exactly. They're about showing the relative improvements across model generations. A 50% success rate is never going to be good enough for an AI coding agent in production, but what matters for the benchmark is the consistent measure and the shift over time. Now, with all of that background out of the way, there was a ton of anticipation around the current generation of models. Google, OpenAI, and Anthropic have all focused on improving coding agents over recent months, but Meter has been relatively quiet. They published results for GPT-5.1 Codex in November, but the results weren't overwhelming. The model had a time horizon of 2 hours and 40 minutes, which was barely better than GPT-5. On the other hand, next came the Opus 4.
Nice, underscore gang. We do love representatives of the underscore gang.
You did something, I don't know, you probably slept on it wrong or whatever, but guess what's fun? Guess what's fun about that? You know what the what the doctor's slang term for that is. Saturday night palsy. So that's what I have. And I guess they call it Saturday night palsy because of like if you're drunk and stuff, you do dumb shit. And I guess a lot of drunk people fall asleep wrong. And I wasn't drunk when I did this. So, Oh, hi.
Globus κάτω παύλα δε κάτω παύλα elder is now following.
Thank you for
Welcome to
following.
nothing, malaka.
Welcome to all of the trauma bonding that you can handle. Anyway, so that's my deal tonight is I cannot feel the back of my hand.
All right. Assuming nothing else happens, I think that maybe that's it. Maybe it's into Marxism. I think I have a raid target.
4.5 result in December, which showed a 4-hour and 49-minute time horizon. This was a big improvement and almost a doubling all on its own. Now, there was a sense that this might be a one-off change due to improvements in the way Anthropic was post-training their models for coding tasks, but obviously the market vindicated their findings. In fact, in January, Swix wrote, "Evals should be validated by vibes. I think not enough people give sufficient credit to Meter for clearly identifying and quantifying the Opus 4.5 outperformance. On paper, GPT-5.2 thinking outperforms Opus 4.5 by 55.6 versus 52% on SweetBench Pro. In practice, Meter's long evals benchmark, while getting increasingly sparse in the long tail, clearly called out the huge jump that many devs are now experiencing a month later. In fact, it is such an outlier that the curve fit was probably wrong and needs to be restarted as a new epoch." And yet, of course, even if January's conversation was dominated by Opus 4.5, we've since had the twin releases of Opus 4.6 and GPT 5.3, which both seemingly represented another big jump in coding capabilities. That much was obvious from using the models, but people still wanted to see what Meter would say once testing was complete. On Friday, Meter released the results for both models simultaneously and showed that model quality is accelerating faster than it ever has before. GPT 5.3 Codex achieved a time horizon of 6.5 hours at 50% completion rate, exceeding Opus 4.5. The results for 4.6 were even more dramatic, achieving a time horizon of around 14.5 hours. This is the largest generational jump of any model in Meter's study. Opus 4.6 has more than tripled the time horizon of 4.5, implying that time horizon is now doubling every 1.5 months. Responses came in fast.
All right, Jay Dope, we'll see you over there.
Fast and furious. Investor Nick Carter wrote, "This is the most important chart in the world, and it's going absolutely ballistic." Even Bernie Sanders mentioned it in a recent talk at Stanford. In fact, the jaws dropped so hard that many people raced to give some caveats. Dean Ball wrote, "For what it's worth, I don't take the Meter chart that's been going around as much of an update. Meter itself has been signaling their decreasing confidence in the benchmark for a while now, both because of saturation and limited long-duration tasks in the benchmark. It's certainly
Yes, Ribbons, March is going to be a heck of a year.
impressive and signals that nothing is decelerating, but I don't see it as strong evidence in and of itself that we are in some radically faster progress regime. Indeed, Meter themselves heavily caveated the results. Codex results, for example, showed some issues with Meter's scaffold. They tested the task set again with OpenAI's scaffold, and while they got similar results, they still found the issues noteworthy enough to point out. For Opus 4.6, Meter noted that their model has basically saturated their task set, leading to some unintuitive results. The upper band of their confidence interval is now 98 hours, practically infinite when it comes to this measurement. You can imagine that their task set has very few tasks that would take a human coder more than 14 hours to complete, so it stands to reason that the benchmark is starting to get a little saturated. Researcher David Reen writes, "Seems like a lot of people are taking this as gospel. When we say the measurement is extremely noisy, we really mean it. Concretely, if the task distribution we're using here was just a tiny bit different, we could have measured a time horizon of 8 hours or 20 hours. Now, overall, Meter says that they are updating their methodology to address the issue, but cautioning then overly focusing on these particular results. I think Visimo Dino really summed it up when they wrote, "It's possible that 1, there really is something massive happening right now, and the Meter graph really does capture that fact. And 2, some small subset of people are mistakenly thinking it's even bigger than it actually is, but that doesn't mean it's actually not very, very big." Now, that sense that something very, very big is happening was exemplified in the response to a new piece from Citrini Research called the 2028 Global Intelligence Crisis. Citrini is a well-regarded research firm among FinTwit, largely doing thematic research and having been very early to several key themes during the AI boom. This latest article covers the implications of abundant intelligence.
You could have chosen a whole bunch of words to begin this article. And you chose what follows is a scenario, not a prediction. This isn't bear porn. Well, that's good.
It essentially took Dario Amade's concept of a country full of geniuses in a data center and applied it to the real world. Among other things, the piece predicted that we'll see AI start to consume the entire economy, moving from sector-specific to broad application of cheap machine intelligence. Citrine's thesis is essentially that capital owners are about to reap the massive benefits of AI, while workers in every strata of the economy will be left jobless and purposeless. Economic activity transforms from being household-based into a capital-based society. This eventually leads to a massive collapse in the stock market, a massive rise in unemployment, and general immiseration across society. Now, given that I'm ripping through this, you can probably tell that what's more interesting to me than the particulars of the piece is the response that it's getting. This is the latest in a long line of future-oriented AI doomer sci-fi. What's notable this time is that it turns out that many investors already believe some version of this thesis. So the incredible response to Citrini's piece is because it's acting as a confirmation that the worst nightmares of an AI-driven economic crisis are possible. Previous reports were met by a lot of skepticism, whereas this article is being met with much more widespread acceptance, or one might suggest confirmation bias. Felix Javin writes, I think what's fascinating about Citrini's piece is it isn't necessarily new ideas for those that have been tapped into what's going on and thinking about it all, but smashes the common knowledge game around it, and now it's becoming something that everyone knows. A tiny fraction of the population knows.
All right, Red. Yeah. Chat Jimmy did say that Redolent Thought is a Twitch streamer and online personality known for their entertaining content and engaging with their community. Must be nice.
Knows what OpenClaw is, and an even smaller subset has set one up. There's a lot for people to come to terms with. Unemployed Capital Allocator writes, the final boss of hysteria is entering the arena. In 2 weeks, it will be all over LinkedIn. In 4 weeks, Wall Street Journal and Financial Times. Every analyst will be typing in unemployment when to the ChatGPT chat box. Citrini will be appointed the AI policy czar. Just remember, it might be peak fear, it might be dumb. Markets are primed to buy it and drive things down. There are no atheists in foxholes. Now, of course, there are plenty of people who took issue with specific parts of this. Dan Hockenmeyer writes, this piece shows a profound lack of understanding of how marketplaces work and why they are defensible. Quoting from the piece, he says, a competent developer.
I mean, Red, I would have just asked Jimmy to say the following words and nothing else, and then just told it what to say.
Could deploy a functional competitor in weeks, and dozens did, enticing drivers away from DoorDash and Uber Eats by passing 90 to 95% of the delivery fee through to the driver. Dan picks up, anyone could have done that at any time in the last 10 years.
Oh, by the way, there is a movie. It is technically a comedy. Oh, it must have come out in 2025. Good Fortune. It is both funny, accurate, and painful. It's a fucking thing, man. The wife and I watched it last night, and yeah. I can recommend it. No, it's a movie. It's a movie, and it's Keanu Reeves and what's his name from the Pineapple Express, Seth Rogen and Aziz Ansari and other folks. And yeah, he's an angel in the movie, and it is kind of light and at the same time heavy in its accurate portrayal of the real world as it currently exists. I do recommend giving it a watch. And I can't tell you why, but there's a portion of a thing that Keanu Reeves' character does, and it's like, yes, that is actually 100% accurate. And ouch.
Why was no one able to? Because the hard part has nothing to do with building the app or attracting the drivers. The hard part is building a liquid marketplace with all the best supply and a massive series of optimizations and investments to drive down prices and delivery times and drive up reliability and quality. DoorDash and Eats have built this when no one else could, and they will not allow agents to transact on their apps, nor will they have a legal requirement to allow it. But the real story isn't as sensational, so it doesn't get the engagement. Economist Guy Berger writes, "This was an interesting read, but I'm not sure it's internally consistent. One question that comes to mind, those who own the agents, what are they doing with the money they're making? Why isn't that fueling employment, GDP, and stock prices?" Now again, I have a feeling that we're going to be talking about this one more in the weeks to come, so I'm not trying to go fully in depth today. I think what's important here is the way that these individual elements all add up to something more. The story of early 2026 so far is a broad-based sense that, to quote that viral piece from about a week ago, something big is happening. The capability set of the coding models has increased dramatically, which has opened up agents as a real force. Those two things combined have moved the impact of AI and agents from just software engineering to everything else. Markets are starting to reprice things as a consequence, and nothing seems like it's going to slow down at all. And because of that, everyone is trying to figure out what next. Now, I would argue that we are desperately in need of the non-doomer version of the Citrini piece, which is something that I'm trying to work on in the background, so keep an eye out for that. For now, it remains a really interesting anthropological study of the moment that I think can tell us a lot about where general sentiment is. That, however, is going to do it for today's AI Daily Brief. Appreciate you listening or watching, as always, and until next time, peace.
All right, I'm going to save the rest of this for tomorrow, actually. We got dystopian puppetry from Upper Echelon. That jackass Claude code agents are completely useless. Self-driving cars are easily hacked on the road. The slop apocalypse, how AI is breaking game engines, and more. And if that sounds good to you, you should be here tomorrow. In the meantime, drink your water, eat some food, take your meds. If you forgot, and always remember, Shaggy loves you. So do I. Be great. All right. Where's our new raid target person? And they are watching some form of movie. All right, so enjoy yourself, and I'll be hanging out in the background, lurking, and then I gotta drive somebody. No, you enjoy yourself, sir. You enjoy yourself, sir. I do miss you when you're not on in the morning and I have to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go to work. So think of me, Red. Think of me. I love you all. Be great.